Hi, friends, and welcome back. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about a topic that might surprise you, but I think it's interesting and it's something that needs to be talked about. So let's get into it. So, the other day, I was watching something on TV and it was something that was kind of gory. It was something that I normally don't. Someone's outside my window. I apologize. Looks like they're just gonna move on by. Yeah, they're gonna move on by. Sorry about that. I'm so nosy. I sit in front of the window in my office and I get, distracted when I see people outside doing things. I'm like, what are they doing? But anyway, they moved on, so sorry about that. I was watching something on TV that was kind of gory, and I normally don't watch things like that because I have become aware over the years that everything that you take in is actually stored in your subconscious mind. And if you're not familiar with that concept or with that term, let me talk a little bit about what that is. So, as human beings, we are physical bodies, of course, we know that, but we are also um, consciousness. Like there is a part of us that is unseen. That is, some people refer to that as a soul in certain religious disciplines or spirit. There is a large part of us, probably the largest part of us, is what we don't see and it's not in our conscious awareness. So, we're soul, we're spirit, we have a body, and we also have this thing called a mind. And the mind is made up of the conscious aspect and the subconscious aspect, or what is unconscious. And your conscious mind is simply me and you right now. I'm talking, you're listening, you're comprehending what I'm saying. That really is all I mean by the conscious mind. Um, but the subconscious mind is way more powerful and it controls way more of our life and physical experience than our conscious mind does. So, what the subconscious mind is, or the unconscious, is a repository, if you will. It is all the experiences you had as a child on up through adulthood. It is every memory that you have. It is where things like trauma are stored. Something happened to you maybe when you were 5 years old, that moving through your day to day experience, when you're washing dishes or playing with your kids, you don't even think about it. It's in the subconscious mind, it's stored there. And so we want to be aware that we do have this unconscious or subconscious part of ourselves because it oftentimes shows up in our life in a way that we don't mean for it to, or in a way that is unexpected. So I always say when people have things in their subconscious or things that they are unconscious about, you'll find them getting angry over things or situations when there's no reason to be angry. Have you ever been in a situation where you said something and someone got triggered and they just stormed out of the room, or someone else maybe said something to them and you looked up and all of a sudden they were in a bad mood? Oftentimes, things like that are directly tied to our subconscious mind, meaning that something is in there that we're completely unaware of. It's not a threat to us now, it's not bothering us now in any way, but the memory, the repository still holds the trauma, and it will cause us to react in our current now experience. So, you want to be mindful that you have this thing called the unconscious or the subconscious mind, and that really is the real you. The conscious mind is a part of you, of course, but the subconscious mind, it has way more power and way more control over how you show up in the world. Now, we aren't helpless to it. The way that we kind of keep the unconscious or the subconscious from ruling our lives or controlling our experiences is awareness. And if you've listened to me for a while, you know that I'm all about awareness. Being aware in the current moment, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, how you're showing up. So that looks like you're going throughout your day and maybe you start ruminating over something that someone said to you 2 weeks ago. Why? And so when you're aware, after a couple of seconds of that, you're going to say, wait a minute, that person said that to me 2 weeks ago. They moved on and I need to move on. So by awareness, it just means checking in with yourself, like taking inventory every second, every day. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I focused on? And so as you do that, you're going to find that things that are in your subconscious mind, they're going to start coming up. It is awareness that lets you know that they're there. So in the example that I just gave of, let's say you're moving throughout your day and you go back to an argument that happened 2 weeks ago. Let's say that that experience is coming up again because when you were, I don't know, a teenager in class, the teacher said something to you and you got embarrassed and you felt really bad. You felt like, you had been clowned a little bit and your ego got triggered. So when this person kind of said that to you, you felt a little disrespect. Again, that could be tied to something that happened years ago. In this situation, a classroom trauma is triggering your reaction, and generally speaking, it's going to be an overreaction. More times than not, it's an overreaction of what the current situation is or what the current situation requires. And so that is how the subconscious and the unconscious mind works. So back to awareness. I kind of weaved around that a little bit. Back to awareness. When you're aware in every moment, you're going to say, hey, I don't have to react to something that this person said. That just makes them, an ignorant person or an unkind person. That's their karma. I don't have to hold this or move forward with this or carry this into my day-to-day experience. That just makes that person a jerk. So when you become aware, you can stop those processes before they really get started and kind of carry you off to a place that you really don't want to go to. That is the power of awareness, and that is how you get control over things that are in your subconscious or your unconscious mind. You'll hear it referred to as both. I typically say the unconscious. Again, me looking out the window, sorry. I'm going to have to get a blind that's like where you can't see out. I always want to make sure that someone's not going to come up and ring my doorbell when I'm in the midst of recording. So they moved on by. I typically call it the unconscious. Some people call it the subconscious. It's really the same thing. You just want to know that there's a part of your mind that you are conscious of or aware of, to use those terms again. You can interpret things. You can hear. You can process. You can think. That's your conscious mind. But equally, if not more, as powerful is your subconscious mind. That is where your data is stored. That is what helps make you who you are. That's all of your life experiences. Those are your preferences. All that stuff is stored in that repository, and all that stuff is not good. Right? So you want to be aware of that. The conscious mind, the unconscious mind, and awareness are my key points for today. You want to take inventory when you're feeling crummy. I do it just all day long because I've just been doing it for so long and I've kind of trained myself to do it. But especially when you're feeling crummy or something has happened, awareness is the thing that brings you back to the current moment and gives you power over the things that are in the repository or the unconscious or the subconscious mind. Now that I've got that out the way, here's the message for today. when I was watching the TV show with the gory stuff on it, and those shows are so popular right now. All this Murder She Wrote. Look at me, I'm going back to the 1990s. Not Murder She Wrote, but all these murder shows, Law and Order, all these hospital shows where people are being mutilated or getting diseases. Let me tell you something. You don't want to do that, friend. You don't want to sit and watch those shows over and over, night after night after night, because the unconscious mind never forgets. It's a miracle when you think about it. Every single experience that you've ever had is stored. Here's how we know this, just in case I've lost you. You can remember something that happened to you when you were a kid, right? You have a conscious memory of the time someone gave you a piece of candy and how you felt. You can remember some of that stuff in vivid detail. So if your mind can store that, what makes us think it can also store all the other negative things that we fed it? So people are day after day watching the police shows, the murder shows, the robberies, the just all kinds of stuff they're taking into their spirit in the name of entertainment. Please don't do that. Please be conscious of what you're taking into your spirit, your subconscious mind. It matters. It matters because, and we're going a little bit deep today, but I think y'all can hang with me on this. Spiritual law says that much gathers more. Law of attraction, you may be familiar with. What that's saying is that things kind of gather momentum. Things will appear in your life, in your circumstances, based on law of attraction, based on momentum, based on thoughts literally becoming things. So let me kind of stay here for a second and break that down a little bit further. If you just watched one Law and Order show, it's not a big deal. If you watched 1,000 Law and Order shows, now it's gaining momentum. It is moving from something that is thought to form. The unseen is becoming materialized, right? It just keeps growing like a bubble. Remember when you were kids and you took the little thing and put it in the bubble fluid, and then you blew it and it got bigger and it got bigger and it got bigger and it got bigger and it got bigger. It's kind of the same concept in that it's tiny at first, and then you add to it, and then you add a little bit more, and then you add a little bit more, and then you add a little bit more. So in this situation, let's say you watched your favorite, we're just going to say cop show. I'm not going to pick on anyone in particular. And again, here and there, it's not a big deal. But just know that this is a thing and that this could be controlling your life experience. So you watched a show, let's say you just weekly, year after year after year after year, you kept watching it. And so now it's gone from something small to something that's larger. It's still in the immaterial world. It's still in the unconscious space or the subconscious mind. But now let's just say all of a sudden, I don't know, something happens that adds to it. Like maybe there is an unseemly character that follows you in an alleyway one night. And so now you have all those shows, and then you have this situation that's now added fear and emotion to it. And I know I'm going deep. The details that I'm giving to you probably aren't really that important. I just want you to know not to do it. So you see this unseemly character, hoodie, whatever, scary, his face is covered, you can't see him. Now you got fear, your heart is racing. He could be on his way to, I don't know, pick up his baby brother. But for you, you've watched all these shows, Now all of a sudden you're here, you're in this moment, and now you've got fear. And so it really becomes dangerous when you start adding emotion to thought. And I'll do another podcast on that. When you start adding emotion to thought, man, you're really starting to get into some dangerous territory. So the bubble, in the illustration that I gave, it just keeps growing. It just keeps getting bigger, bigger, bigger. And if it gets big enough, it will manifest itself in your outer experience. That is how the subconscious mind works. So as I'm watching this TV show and it's really gory, and I'm like, hey girl, do you really want to do this? Now, I don't do it that often simply because I now have the awareness not to do it. But there's always a little bit of risk because there's so many things in the unconscious mind. And I like the word unconscious better than subconscious because we are unaware of it. We are unconscious of it. There's so many things in there. Literally, every single thing that has happened to you in your entire life is stored in that repository. And so if much gathers more, or if things materialize based on momentum or law of attraction, the more you're adding, the more you're adding, the bigger it's getting, the bigger it's getting. If it gets enough energy around it, especially with things like emotion, bam, you may find yourself in the midst of something that you don't want to be in simply because you weren't aware and you kept doing something that created some negative momentum in the direction of something that you didn't want. Now, the beautiful thing is that you can also do it the other way. You can also do it in the positive, and that's what you want to do. So, if you're from the Christian discipline, I'll leave you with this last thought. The Bible tells us to guard our gates. What that is telling us is not just because you don't want to be in a person that's full of sin or living life that is unpleasing to God, although, hey, that's important too. The bigger concept of that is that the subconscious mind is recording everything. It sees and it hears all. And so the wisdom of the Bible is such that when it was telling us to guard your gates, you don't want to take in things because they may come back to haunt you later. And yeah, you know, it's difficult in this lifetime to kind of move and walk in purity. I think that's one reason why people are abandoning the church. They didn't have the wisdom that kind of went along with scripture. And God loved the church. They've served us extremely well. They've got us to this point. But now it's time for us to go deeper with scripture, with religion, with what the texts were trying to communicate to us. And so I think sometimes people have defected from church, from religion. Not only is it kind of difficult to live that way, but it becomes even more difficult when you don't really have the incentive because you don't really understand. And so that's why I'm here to tell you, when the Bible says guard your gates, it is telling you that your subconscious mind is a repository. So everything that you're taking in is becoming a part of you. And yes, it could come out as sin, but it could also come out in a negative situation. It could also come out in ways that hinder your relationships. It can also come out in a way that blocks you from your glorious future. So, find positive shows. Find positive conversations. The good thing about the way that we're designed is that momentum grows and builds. So, you can do it in the positive direction. If you've been going this way down the negative path and you're watching all kinds of things that you shouldn't watch and taking in things that you shouldn't into your soul or into your spirit, you can go back the other way and the momentum will build. So start watching positive things. Start spreading love, saying words of kindness. Find good music to listen to, good TV shows. And let that bubble get big, 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 big. And as that bubble grows, the negative bubble will get smaller. Again, it's based on momentum. It's based on what you feed it. So if you don't feed it, it'll just eventually fizzle out. So I wanted to come and talk about that. Thanks for rocking with me today. I hope I left you with something that will help you live your life better. We got to get this thing. Far too many of us are struggling, having a hard time, and we simply haven't had the wisdom of how to correct it. So there you go. Enjoy it.